All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Grave Empire by Richard Swan. This is book #1 in his new trilogy called The Great Silence. If you've followed my channel, you know one of my favorite newer fantasy authors on the scene is Richard Swan. In fact, I've reviewed this trilogy of books, starting with The Justice of Kings, which as I thought was one of the best debut fantasy novels I've ever read. I loved this book and the trilogy. But if you want to watch my reviews of this trilogy, all you need to do is type in my last name, Durfee, into your YouTube search bar, and then also type in Richard Swan's name into the YouTube search bar, and those book reviews will somehow, through a pagan sorcery, the type of which I do not understand, those book reviews will magically appear upon your television screen if you want to watch the reviews of this book, which these are great books, and they actually tie into this book. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about the cover first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. This has a cover by an artist named Philip Harris. I really do like the illustration. I think I like these a little better just because they look more fantasy. This is certainly fantasy. It's got the skulls and the ships and all these little characters like this wolf man over here. There's more skulls. There's like a George Washington fighting figure, a guy over here. It's just a really intricate design. I really kind of like it. Oh, and it's got the cannons and sort of the steampunk type of stuff here. So anyway, there's also a map. All fantasy novels should have a map. If I can find the one, I will show it to you. But I might not be able to find it very quickly. I'm not going to be able to locate this map. I should have. Oh, there it is. It's a decent map. Now, it is similar to the maps that are in this book, because this book does take place in the same fantasy world as these books. Now, these books take place probably 1,000 or so years before this one. These books take place in a very gritty, medieval, grimy world. This book takes place maybe 1,000 years in the future, where it's sort of an industrial revolution is taking over this fantasy world now. So this was very sword and sorcery, people wearing, armor like knights, doing medieval things. This is more of like a Charles Dickens-esque landscape where the city, they're burning coal. They've got cannons and muskets instead of swords. Well, they still have swords, but you know what I mean. Technology has advanced in this fantasy world. Now we get to the prologue. We enter the prologue with a young, reluctant soldier named Peter. He's writing letters back and forth to his home, describing the dangers of the missions that he's on and the places he's going and the foreign lands that he is sort of adventuring through, writing these letters. Now, if you followed my channel for any length of time, you know I do not like this writing device, this plot device where people write letters back and forth to each other to explain the story. Dracula does that a lot. Frankenstein does that a lot. There's a lot of books that use that. I don't like it. I think the Richard Swan does it pretty good. I was actually interested in the letters that Peter was writing to his family. But he's the main character. And then we've got the second main character named Renata Rainier. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Renata Rainer? I don't know. Anyway, Renata is her name. She's a low-ranking ambassador to the vicious merfolk, the mermen. There's mermaids in here, and there's a lot. There's killer sharks. There's mermaids. Reminds me quite a lot of my own books, where my medieval characters fight off merfolk and sharks and things like that. But anyway, Renata has a sister named Amara. We meet those two very first. Amara's very beautiful. Things happen. Things don't go well for these two. Now, we get Peter's we get Peter's, there's two different storylines here, and plus a third of another character, but that's a little bit more of a minor character. But we get the two, Peter and Renata. Peter's, and they're separated by vast, these storylines is, you know, Peter's off in a war zone. Renata is in the main city, so we get to see this world from these two different perspectives. Peter's off in a world where, you know, and I will admit I enjoyed Peter's story a little more, where he's kind of like the exploration of this world. We get to see the landscape, the elements. There's some kind of a horror plot twist to Peter's story. There's like monsters in the woods, things in the woods, mysterious things in the woods, things that he doesn't know. He's going into different places he's never been. He's adventuring. Now, Renata's story is more based in the main city, which is a very steampunk, industrialized city where it's very Charles Dickenson-esque, Dickensian, as you would say. You know, we get to see the more philosophical side of the story as she's in the city, discussing philosophy under in this dank, dark, gritty, big city where the steam and the coal, the smoke from the coal furnaces is just, you know, it's just black and dark and kind of grim. Those are the two storylines. This is more of kind of a setup novel, I'm thinking, for the rest of the novels to come, where we just kind of get the pieces and the chess pieces in place. I'll read the back of it just because I did kind of a vague introduction. A new age of exploration and innovation has dawned, and the empire of the wolf stands to take its place as the foremost power in the known world. Glory and riches await, but dark days are coming. A mysterious plague has broken out, and the pagan kingdoms in the north, a dangerous plague has broken out in the pagan kingdoms of the north, while in the south the empire's proxy war in the lands of the Wolfman is weeks away from total collapse. Worse still is the message brought to the empress by two heretical monks who claim to have lost contact with the spirits of the afterlife. The monks believe this is the start of an ancient prophecy heralding the end of days. The prophecy is called the Great Silence. And then we get to know our different characters and how they are entwined into this prophecy, how magic is a thing. Of course, magic is a thing in most fantasy novels. Magic is a thing in most fantasy novels that has been banned. It is illegal to do magic, things like this. A lot of these themes are interwoven into this book. Now, I give this book, whereas I gave Justice of Kings just a solid 10 out of 10. And these other books were really high ranked too. I found this one just slightly less interesting. And so I'm going to give this one like an 8 out of 10. I still enjoyed it. I enjoyed Richard Swan's writing style. I enjoyed how he had taken his grim medieval fantasy world and advanced that 1,000 years into the future to where we're getting some technology. But it's the same landscape, the same cities. Some of them have different names. The geography has changed a little bit, but everything is basically the same, just with muskets and cannons and things like this. It expands the world quite a bit, but I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Very solid rating. Very enjoyable book. This author will probably be one that I keep buying and collecting. And so Grave Elements. No, not Grave Elements. 8 out of 10.